Doc Thompson.
Doc Thompson at Talk Radio 1270 WXYT. Appreciate you joining me. Got Judge Andrew Napolitano coming up. We're going to talk about some of the crazy things going on. Individually, these things are really troubling. Individually, some of the new rules and regulations that the government has passed, very, very troubling. But when you add them all up, when you look at all of them, you start saying, wait a minute, these are really, really bad. Well, some of the ones you may know, like the National Defense Authorization Act. You've got the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act. And then you've got the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order. Adding these things up, building off of each other, a big problem. Let me share a couple of them with you first. Then I'm going to get the judge's take on this. The National Defense Authorization Act. This is the one that just passed December 31st. They got it in right at the end of the year. Now, this was signed into law by President Obama, and it ends the right to due process and habeas corpus for U.S. citizens. So you can be detained by military forces and in prison without trial or charges for as long as the government deems necessary. But if you tie that in with the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act of 2011, gets very, very tricky. Judge Andrew Napolitano joins me now. How are you, sir?
Hello, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing well. I do have to warn you, this call may be monitored for totalitarian assurance, just so you know.
Everything we do is these days.
So, you know of the NDAA and the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act, and these are all horrible.
I do.
But when you look at them all together, Judge, wow.
The government really looks at the Constitution as just sort of a guideline, and it believes that people are willing to accept the nonsense that somehow, by giving up their liberty, they are being kept safer. All the while, we get closer and closer to an East Germany-like regime. I mean, this week the Congress was voting on legislation that would force manufacturers of automobiles to put GPS devices in all cars, which would record everywhere the car goes, to which the government would have electronic access. So 1984, in terms of the novel, not in terms of the year, obviously is here already. The president thinks he can kill whoever he wants, even if the person is an American. The Secret Service have the authority to make you get off your front lawn when the president's motorcade walks by. And the National Defense Authorization Act, on its face, I mean, this hasn't been done yet as far as I know, and certainly no court has approved of it, authorizes the president to use the military to lock people up and throw away the key. Is that really the society we want to live in?
Absolutely not. But when you look at them together, so you say, okay, I could be, imprisoned. I could be picked up and charged because I'm not complying with what the Secret Service does. But then they can go ahead and hold me, without due process because of the NDAA, right? I mean,
theoretically, yes. Yes, theoretically, all this could happen. The reason I say theoretically is because this is virgin territory for the American law enforcement and for the American judicial system. We've never really been confronted with anything like this since the Civil War. But I will tell you that when Lincoln did this in the Civil War, and by this I mean used the military to incarcerate civilians without trial, the Supreme Court unanimously, 6 of whose members he had just appointed, invalidated what he did and said there is no exception in the Constitution for wartime. The Constitution exists in good times and in bad for everybody. The case is called In re Milligan. And the Supreme Court, a year after Lincoln's death, freed everybody that he had locked up and who were still being kept in military jails. We're not talking about Southern troops that were shooting at American soldiers. We're talking about civilians who criticized the war effort.
Wow. But we still have to count on the Supreme Court that there are enough reasonable people that would, if anything ever came before them, that they would do the right thing.
Look, I don't want to give you sleepless nights, but we have a president who hates the Supreme Court, who embarrassed it publicly when they were in the House of Representatives chamber together, and who just 3 weeks ago inexplicably questioned in public the power and authority of the court to invalidate legislation that violates the Constitution. We have a president who thinks he can kill Americans on his own without a trial. His attorney general argued in an infamous speech at Northwestern Law School that the clear deliberation inside the White House somehow was a substitution for the due process required by the Constitution. And we have a president who holds himself out as an expert in the Constitution, having taught these topics at one of the best law schools in the country. So we have a very, very dangerous situation on our hand, and this president has no monopoly on the danger. I mean, we began in recent years this march toward totalitarianism in the Bush years with the Patriot Act, which authorizes federal agents to write their own search warrants, violating the requirements of the Fourth Amendment, which say that only judges can issue search warrants. And it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And whenever these things happen, an American is killed, a drone kills innocents, people just seem to look the other way.
I'm talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano, and that's one of the things I love about you, sir, is that you're consistent. It's not about politics, it's about the Constitution. I really appreciate that from you.
Well, thank you. Look, my beast in the night is big government. Government that thinks it can write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax any event, no matter what the Constitution says. And there are big government impulses in both parties. There actually is a very small minority of people in the government who believe it should remain within the confines of the Constitution. I've argued that, we have a Republican version of big government, which is war and deficits and bailouts, and we have a Democratic version of big government, which is war and higher taxes
yeah.
and bailouts.
Right.
And both of them write laws to keep themselves in power. In some respect, the Democrats are actually a little bit more intellectually honest because they make no bones about the fact that they want to deliver this big government. My friends in the Republican Party, and I'm a registered Republican, keep claiming they're not in favor of big government, and then they vote as if they were Democrats.
When I look at all of these things that were passed, like the NDAA and that, all of these things, and you start saying to yourself, wow, how did this happen? How could you get there? And you say, well, I guess over 200 years. But the thing is, the Sedition Act was passed just 10, 12 years after the signing of the ratification of the Constitution. Yeah. The guys who fought for it said, now that we're here, you can't speak out against the government.
Well, look, not only the same generation, but in some cases the same persons, the same human beings that wrote in the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, voted for and enacted the Alien and Sedition Acts, one of the four of which made it a crime to criticize the government. If you study philosophy and psychology, you might agree with me. St. Augustine said we all have a bunch of libidos in us, a bunch of urges to do things in an unbridled way. And one of those is libido dominandi, which is the lust to dominate. And this seems to draw people to government, and once they're there, they want to use this authority to tell the rest of us how to live. Not to leave us alone, but to tell us how to live.
So really, they make the argument that I don't want the government bothering me just to get to the point where they can say, now that I'm the government, I know best.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who you are. Talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano. Before I let you go, I got to bring up one issue that's going on at the state level here in Michigan, and it's gone on other places too in other situations. But the state is now telling farmers they can't have feral pigs and forcing them to kill these what they consider feral pigs when they're not wild. They're in a cage. They're just a certain breed. They're not dangerous, but under the guise that they could get out, Judge. And if they could get out, then they could be a problem.
Well, your child could use the steak knife in the kitchen drawer to harm someone in the household. Should we require people to have plastic knives? I mean, this is just crazy. I would think that this is a destruction of private property, and if the government wants the pigs, it should have to pay for them, but then what public uses are they going to be put to? Doesn't the government of Michigan, which is bankrupt, have anything better to do than worry about pigs?
That is an excellent point. This was something that was featured on Glenn Beck's website, The Blaze, and we're
the best. I miss him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I fill in for him once in a while, but so we're gonna go ahead and try to get them on and try to do it. But if you get a chance, check that out. I think you'll be pretty interested. It's the feral pigs in Michigan.
Only in America.
Only in America. All right, Judge Andrew Napolitano, I appreciate you joining me, buddy.
Thank you, Doc. My pleasure.
Have yourself a great day. Talk Radio 1270 WXYT.
Doc Thompson.